Hello, Algebra 1. Today we are going to be talking about distributive property and combining like terms. For today, we are mostly focused on doing these two skills separately, and then our next lesson, we will really focus on putting them together. We're also going to look at a little more function notation just to help you practice distributive property and combining like terms in a slightly different way. So first, let's start with the distributive property. Distributive property looks something like this. Usually you're going to have a number on the outside of the parentheses. In this case, our number is this a value, and we are going to multiply that value to both terms inside the parentheses. So for example, we're doing a times b becomes ab, and a times c is ac. And most of the time you'll have at least one number, and so you can actually multiply these two things together. All right, so let's go ahead and practice. Again, you're going to use your calculator as needed. Take your number on the outside, multiply to the first term. 2 times x is just 2x. Because you have a number and a variable, we can't actually multiply those two things together. And then this is 2 times a negative 5, because there's a minus in front. 2 times negative 5 is negative 10. That's why I put a minus 10. This is our answer. Let's try it again. Take your number on the outside, multiply. Negative 11 times x is just going to be negative 11x. And then this is negative 11 times a negative 3. Negative 11 times negative 3 is a positive 33. And this is our answer. So I want you to notice is it doesn't matter if it starts as a minus in the parentheses. It's whatever you end up getting when you multiply, that's the sign you're going to put. So you had a negative times a negative, that's why this is now a plus. Number on the outside, multiply. Negative 3 times 2x is negative 6x. Negative 3 times positive 4 is negative 12. So again, notice that it's not just the whatever it was there. You got to actually multiply it and use that sign. All right, so now sometimes you're going to have a fraction. If that's the case, you're definitely going to want to use your calculator. We're doing negative 2/3 times 18. So what we will go ahead and do is use our calculator. Remember, a fraction can just be typed in with division. And we get negative 12. All right, so because there's an x there, though, it's going to be negative 12x. And then we'll multiply again. Negative 2/3 times negative 9. Please be careful that 9 is a negative because of the minus in front. So when you type it in, make sure you have that negative as well. And that's a positive 6. So you want to make sure you put a plus 6. And if you hear any random pounding, it is because they're working on the roof outside. All right, this next one, whenever you have a negative just in front, that's like a negative 1. Multiplying by a negative 1 doesn't change the number itself, it just changes the sign. So negative 1 times 5x is negative 5x. And negative 1 times negative 8 is positive 8. All right, last one of these. We're doing 1/2 times 2x. You can definitely go ahead and type that into your calculator if you want, but you can also just think of this. What's 1/2 of 2? It's just 1, so you can put 1x. And then this is like saying 1/2 of 18 is 9, but it's going to be a negative 9 because it's 1/2 times negative 18. You can also just choose to write it like this. Either of these is fine. All right, so now we're going to try this with some function notation. So what we're going to go ahead and do is we are given f of x. Remember, we talked about this in a prior lesson. This is now 4 times f of x. So remember, a way that we show multiplication is with parentheses. So you're going to bring your 4 down, open up parentheses, and then we're just going to take f of x and put it right here. And now this is some distributive property. So we're doing 4 times 3x is 12x, and 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. All right, let's try that one more time. So we're still using the same f of x. It's just a -2 that's in front this time. This is going to come over here. And again, you're just taking that outside number and multiply. -2 times 3x is -6x. And -2 times -5 is +10. Notice that if it's a positive, I'm putting a plus, and if it's a negative, I'm putting a minus. All right, so that's distributive property. Now we're going to talk about combining like terms. When we are combining like terms, we say that we're going to add or subtract terms that have the same variable, so that's like the same letter, with the same exponent. All right, so for example, 7x and -6, these are not like terms because they would both have to have an x and they do not. All right, 43c squared and 2c squared. Those are both c squared, so yes, those are like terms. All right, now this last one's a little tricky. X and x squared. I like to think of this as a duck and a goose. They look really similar. There are things about them that are even, pretty much the same. But ultimately, a duck and a goose are different, and x squared are different as well. We do not call these like terms. So that exponent has to be the same as well as the variable. All right. So now let's go ahead and practice that. First thing you want to do is you want to find your like terms. Highlighters can be really helpful. So I have a 3a. I'm going to look for another a. Here it is. Whatever sign is in front of it matters. So this 3a, it's in front of everything. There's nothing in front of it. That means this is just a positive 3a. So what you're going to do is 3a minus 2a. Or you could say 3a plus -2a, whatever you prefer. Some people think of combining just as adding, and that's fine. Just make sure when you're adding a negative. You can use your calculator if you'd like, and we can say that's 1a, or just a is fine. The other like terms are just your numbers. This is a +2 plus 12, and 2 plus 12 is 14. So you can write it either of these ways. Okay. Usually we put the letter, the variable first, then we put the number. All right, let's try it again. I have an x and I have a -2x. So this x is a 1x. There's always that assumed 1 here. So this is saying 1x minus 2x, or 1x plus -2x, which is -1x. You're welcome to write it like this if you'd like. And then we have an 18 minus 14. 18 minus 14 is a +4. That's why I'm going to put a plus. All right, and again, either of these answers would be correct. All right, let's take a look at number 6. You're going to notice you have a couple different letters here. I'm going to just start with the first one. Do you see any other y's? I do right here. Add them up. 4y plus 2y is 6y. Now, my x, there are no other x's, so this does not have a like term. You're just going to bring it down. Same with your 18. There's not a regular number to add with the 18, so we're just going to bring it down. Let's try some ones with x squareds. Again, this x squared has to go with another x squared. So your like terms are this one and this one. And be careful because that's a -8. So again, you could think of this as 1 minus 8 or 1 plus -8, up to you. It's going to be a -7, and then it's just going to stay an x squared. Now I've got a 2x and a minus 12x. Really be careful with that sign in front. It tells you whether you have addition or subtraction going on. 2 minus 12 is -10, and make sure your x is still there. And so here is your answer. All right, so let's try a challenge for combining like terms. I have f of x and I have g of x. And what I want to go ahead and do is I want to add those together. So I have 3x minus 5, that's my f of x, plus 4x plus 10, that's my g of x. And now I look for my like terms. 3x goes with 4x, and it's a positive, so I'm adding. That makes 7x. And negative 5 plus 10 is a positive 5. All right, so the last thing we're going to do is we're going to start to put these ideas together, which is what we're going to focus on the most in our next lesson. So think of distributive property as multiplication and combining like terms as really addition or subtraction. Because of PEMDAS, we always do multiplication first, which means if there's distributive property, you should be doing that first. Distributive property involves parentheses. That's another reason we're always going to do the parentheses first. So you're going to find your parentheses. You're going to find the number connected to the parentheses. That's the negative 5. That's what you're multiplying. So we're going to start with that. Negative 5 times 2x is negative 10x. And this is not negative 5 times 3. It's negative 5 times negative 3. So that is a positive 15. This 17, not in the parentheses. It's just going to come right down. Now that parentheses are gone, you're going to look for your like terms. Our like terms are the two numbers. We're just going to bring the negative 10x down because there's nothing to go with it. And then add 15 and 17 makes 32. And this is your answer. All right, so this is just combining those two ideas. All right, let's try it again. First, find parentheses. That's over here. Find your number directly with the parentheses. That's the 4. Multiply. 4 times x is 4x. 4 times negative 3 is negative 12. This 2x can just come down. Now look for your like terms. It's these guys right here. They're both x's. 2x plus 4x is 6x. And then bring down that minus 12. And there you go. That's your answer. And that is the conclusion of our distributive property and combining like terms for day 4. Have a great day. Bye.